Touch the link. You're watching Tibet This Week, a weekly feature that provides a preview of this week's news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and the Central Tibetan Administration. Let's have a look at today's headlines. His Holiness the Dalai Lama inaugurates International Buddhist Conference. Latest self-immolation protest by a Tibetan reported in Tibet. The Tibetan Parliament in exile expresses solidarity with Tibetans inside Tibet. Human rights situation in Tibet once again under spotlight at the United Nations. His Holiness the Dalai Lama returned to Dharamshala this Tuesday after a 4-day visit to Indian states of Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. The Tibetan spiritual leader inaugurated the International Buddhist Conference at Rajgir in Bihar along with the country's Union Minister of Culture Dr. Mahesh Sharma. Referring to himself as a son of India who sustained on Indian food and educated with rich ancient knowledge of India, His Holiness paid tribute to the Indian masters and lauded India's effort to revive its Buddhist culture. The conference was organized by Union Ministry of Culture and the Nav Nalanda Mahavira University based in Nalanda, Bihar. On Sunday last week, His Holiness visited city of Bhopal at the invitation of the Madhya Pradesh state government to address its members of Legislative Assembly, ministers and bureaucrats on the art of happiness. His Holiness praised the state government for setting up Happiness Department which will look to ensure happiness in the lives of the common people and applauded the Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan for conceiving the idea. The Tibetan spiritual leader was also invited to speak on environment and water conservation at Narmada Seva Yatra. His Holiness was joined by Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan, Education Minister Deepak Joshi and other Indian leaders. Admiring the Narmada River Conservation Campaign launched by the Chief Minister, His Holiness shed light on important aspects of India's prosperity, which is bringing development in terms of education, health and infrastructure of its rural areas. In Uttar Pradesh, His Holiness visited Sri Uddasin Karshni Ashram in Mathura, where he was received by Swami Karshni Guru Asharanand Ji Maharaj and other Hindu priests. A 24-year-old Tibetan farmer, Pema Gyaltsen, also known as Pegel, reportedly self-immolated at around 4 p.m. local time in Tibet last Saturday. The self-immolation took place near Tsoga Monastery in Kham Nyagrong, eastern Tibet. Sources have said he called for the return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Tibet and for freedom in Tibet at the time of self-immolation. The police reportedly arrived at the scene and immediately took away his charred body. Some sources from Tibetan exile community said Pegel was taken to a hospital in Chengdu and is believed to be still alive. Several images that have emerged out of Nyagrong the next day shows a huge police presence at the self-immolation site. Pema Gyaltsen is reported to be an unmarried farmer who is the lone breadwinner for his family of 6 parents and 4 siblings. This is the second case of self-immolation in Nyagrong after the self-immolation of 18-year-old Gesang Wangdu in the year 2016, who succumbed to the injuries soon after. Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Sengye responded to the self-immolations by calling it sad and reminded the Chinese government to heed to the calls and genuine aspirations of the Tibetan people inside Tibet. Pema Gyaltsen is the 146th Tibetan to self-immolate in Tibet and the first one in the year 2017. On Tuesday last week, the third session of the 16th Tibetan Parliament in Exile began its proceedings. Speaker Khenpo Sonam Tempe, in his opening remarks, offered deepest gratitude and heartfelt devotion to the Tibetan spiritual leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for his tireless efforts in restoring freedom for Tibetans and peace in the world. The speaker spoke on the deteriorating situation inside Tibet and reiterated the Tibetan appeal to the Chinese government to resume the stalled dialogue with the representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and to address the grievances of the Tibetan people. The session passed a unanimous resolution to express solidarity with the sufferings of the Tibetans inside Tibet and mourn the death of Tashi Rabden, who self-immolated last December in Machu County, Tibet. The ongoing parliament session discusses and approves the budget of the Central Tibetan Administration for the financial year 2017 and 18. This session will conclude on the 25th of this month. The 34th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council began discussion on human rights situation that requires the Council's attention. Several governments, including the United States of America, the European Union, Canada, France and Germany, once again raised China's disregard of international standard of human rights and widespread cases of rights violation in China, including Tibet and Xinjiang. These delegation nations strongly expressed their concern over the arbitrary arrest, detention and conviction of human rights defenders and lawyers, especially from the region of Xinjiang, Uyghur and Tibet. The European Union specially called for the immediate release of the detained Tibetan human rights defenders, including Tashi Wangchuk, a 31-year-old Tibetan language right advocate. Dawat Sudim, the Central Tibetan Administration's United Nations Advocacy Officer based in Geneva, representing Society for Threatened People, delivered a 2-minute oral statement on religious repression in Tibet. He called upon Council's urgent attention on the ongoing wide-scale demolitions and destruction of Larungkar and Yachenkar.
Mr. President, with the utmost urgency and importance, we would like to bring to the Council's attention on the ongoing demolition work of Larungkar Buddhist Institute located in Satar County in Kardze, Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture of Sichuan Province. Mr. President, China must uphold Article 36 of its constitution granting religious freedom. Noting of the fact that China is an important member of the United Nations, China must uphold its responsibility in safeguarding the fundamental human rights. We thus urge the Chinese government to respect and religious freedom of Tibetans. We also would like to urge the UN High Commissioner to take immediate action in the case of demolition of Larungkar and Yachenkar and push for a visit to Tibet Autonomous Region and adjacent region where Tibetans live to assess and address the pressing situation.
Gracias.
Thank you.
The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Prince Zaid Rad Zaid Al Hussein, on March 8 during the Council's annual report of the ongoing 34th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council, expressed concern over cultural and religious restriction in Tibet and demonstrated his commitment to engage with China for an effective dialogue on important human rights issues.
I deplore the intimidation and detention of lawyers and activists who seek the good of their community and nation. I am also disturbed by cases of restrictions on cultural and religious rights, particularly in Xinjiang and Tibet, and I will continue to reach out to China for an effective dialogue on important human rights issues.
That's all for today. See you next Friday. Thank you for watching.